When the doubt gets loud, but answer that call. Vision ain't real till you grind at speed, so breathing deep. Then call the damn leads. Call the damn leads.
Hey, welcome back to Call the Damn Leads, the show by sales professionals for sales professionals. I'm your host, Drewbie Wilson. With more than 2 decades in sales, I've seen it, been through it, heard about it. Now I'm bringing those stories to you, my favorite people in the world, the sales community. Because let's be honest, it's the greatest job on earth. Doesn't matter where you come from, what background, what personality type, or what gender. You can make an amazing life in sales. Today's guest, no stranger. I'd like to welcome Virginia Elder to the show. How are you today?
I am great. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to be here with you, and I want to jump right in. I want to hear your crazy sales story.
Okay. Well, recently I was just scrolling through LinkedIn. That tends to be where my people are. And I see someone that I've literally hung out with at conference for days on end posting about their aspiration to start a podcast. And as a podcast manager and agency owner since 2019, I'm like, hello? Like, I immediately replied back and was like, you know, this is what I do, right? And just kind of left it there. And I was like, if it had been anybody else, I might have responded in a certain way. But like I said, we walked and talked down the streets of New Orleans together, you know, not a couple weeks, but like conferences prior to that. And I had asked him different things about speaking on stage because that's what he does. And we had this whole rapport going. And then I was like, how do you literally not think of me? So it was that thing. And so he replied back, like with the same energy, was like, oh my God, you know, I totally forgot. Like, I would love to talk to you about this. And I can't help but think that if I didn't have the kind of gusto or bravery or whatever, just to be like, excuse me, hi, like, what you doing? Like, why didn't you reach out to me? Cause I just fell off his radar, right? Same as I don't know what's going on in his life day after day. He doesn't know what's going on in mine, and we just fall off each other's radar.
Well, and it's a great reminder that even people who we think we have told everything to, they have no idea.
Yeah.
Because even if you told them, they may not have heard it, or they may not have been paying attention, or they may have forgot. Because, like, let's just be honest, it's a noisy world. There's a lot of stuff going on out there, so we forget things. Like, I probably forgot my wife told me what we're having for dinner today, but it is what it is. Like, I don't know. She probably did tell me. Who knows? Point being, though, this happens so often to sales professionals because they're afraid to promote themselves. And I think it's because there are some folks out there who have set an example of maybe doing this a little too much, being a little too aggressive with the promotion. But this story is such a great reminder that you do have to, on occasion, tell people, like, hey, I can help you with that. And just in doing so, for those of you who aren't, you might find a couple of deals aren't that far away. So, Virginia, let's nerd out on this because, like, I love podcasting. We met through the Podmatch platform. You're in the podcasting space many, many years. Let's talk about it as a tool for business owners. Like, what made you decide to get into podcasting and how did you turn it into a business?
Yeah. Okay. So the story in summary is that it was completely accidental.
Go figure.
Okay. So
like all sales careers. I don't know. It just happened.
I don't know. I just woke up one day. No. So I have a background in accounting and was, doing the corporate dance just like everybody. And through that journey, we had some extended family that was going through some stuff. And that ended up kind of pulling me into the mix, and I ended up helping them significantly financially, and it put us in a rough spot. And I turned to financial podcasts for help. Just like, help me get out of debt, help me learn how to invest. What am I doing? I'm looking for that guide or mentor or a few that I can pull various pieces of advice from and start to get my life together. So, long story short, that worked. We paid off $80,000 of debt in just like three and a half years. It was wild. And we like, let me preface that with neither of us had these like six-figure careers. My husband's a teacher. I was in audit. We definitely both made less than 100,000 as a household income. So it wasn't, like you could just throw money out at your debt and it'd be fine. So through that process, I'm binging these financial podcasts and, in an odd way, because we develop connection with our hosts, our favorite hosts. We think that they're our friends, and they don't know who we are, but we are obsessed with them, right? And so through that, I was like, I didn't find a mom with young kids who kind of was experiencing the same pains or talking directly to the same pains that I was needing help with at the time. It was all these dudes. No offense, but like the finance space is like a lot of guys, okay? And so they don't talk about the guys. Yes. And they don't talk about, the woman being the household manager of money. They didn't talk about having two kids in diapers and daycare costs and balancing daycare cost with paying off debt and prioritizing and all of that stuff. So I decided to jump out on a limb and be that voice. So I started financial coaching, started my own podcast. That led me to attend the same financial conference where I met this guy, but it was like years later. So I attended that conference and met some people there that are financial professionals, and they had been thinking about launching a podcast. And figured out that I had launched mine, and I was like this baby newbie in the financial coaching space and the podcast space. And they were like, "You should launch our show." And I was like, what? So they just said, we feel really comfortable with you. We would love to, walk through it, and we'll all figure it out together. It'll be fine. So we did. And within that year, I found other financial related clients that wanted to also start a podcast. And so it just kind of blossomed from there, but it was completely accidental. I did not intend to be a podcast agency owner. At that time, I thought I was doing financial coaching and helping other moms. And I had to completely set that idea aside and go all in on podcasting, which I'm glad I did. It's been a wild and fun ride.
What a heck of a story. And it's a good reminder for sales professionals, especially because you gotta just trust a little bit and have a little bit of faith, because again, I think so many people out there are their own worst enemy in terms of just accepting the sale, letting it happen, and trusting that you will figure it out along the way. Now, I'm not telling y'all to just go out and sell a bunch of stuff with zero intention of ever delivering or, making any attempt. But, Virginia, your story around people will just trust you to figure it out. They'll know you're not an expert. That's why they're willing to pay you the little bit that they're willing to pay you, because they also know, hey, if I'm going to go hire a full-blown team that I'm not really ready for, it's going to be 20, 30 times as much. People want to give people a shot. And I think that's such a cool story in terms of you personally had the value and experience of listening to podcasts. And you thought to yourself, okay, there's a gap in this marketplace. Marketing and sales 101. How can we find the need and fill that need? Okay, great. You're going to start your own show. And all of a sudden now you've got other people that want to learn this thing that you figured out kind of by accident. And you get to now go and help other people do that. It's beautiful. And one of the things that's cool about a podcast is the ability to use it to build authority and get in front of those individuals who you may potentially want to do business with. So talk about that strategy a little bit. Let's kind of get into the psychology of podcasting and where you can really go here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, since 2019, of course, I thought I was like creating, and helping create shows that would lead people to these various clients' businesses. And I was doing the best at that time that I was equipped with, right? The strategies and things that I talk about with clients today are far more advanced. And so, just like some quick hits that people want to think about if they are considering a show that supports their business, is that the number one thing we can do is speak to topics that our ideal client cares about. If they do not care about repurposing podcast content, then we don't need to talk about that on the show, right? If they do not care about the health benefits of pomegranates on your health podcast because nobody likes pomegranates, then don't talk about, like, pick something else, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, super weird, right? But get that specific. Figure out, like, down to a pinpoint, what do your people care about? What are their absolute pains and frustrations? And then you create content around those topics, because then naturally your titles, your episode titles, all these things are going to have phrases that they are searching for. That is like the number one way that you can attract people to your business. The second...
Okay, go ahead. I was going to say, that is great. That is great advice. I love let's keep going, but I think that's so genius. And I want you guys to make sure you listen to these very intentionally, because this is like cream of the crop stuff here. Please continue.
Thank you. Yeah. And it takes a while to figure that out on your own. So if I can just get ahead and say, like, I know those topics feel so niche, like only 20 people are going to click on that title. Okay, cool. But if every 20 of those people, or if even half of those people latched onto you and didn't let go and became your client, you tell me how much more powerful that episode is than your, like, general content that you put out there, right? So the second tidbit there is that you've really got to think about your listener's journey and how they might become a client or buy your book or whatever your thing is that you're doing. Is it clear, simple, and accessible for them to go from being a listener to buying your thing? If when you are telling someone how to buy your book, for example, and there are 4 steps and you're describing your resources page and how much you have to scroll down and click this and no, nobody's going to do that. Nobody is going to take more than 2 seconds to try to do the thing that you want them to do. And if it doesn't work, they're out. Like, it has to be that clear. So narrow it down, simplify, make the button neon. Like, I don't care what you got to do, but make it so simple they can't miss it.
Yeah, and I think that also goes a lot with the podcast itself.
Oh, yeah.
Right? What's the flow of the show? What are people going to learn? What are they going to walk away from it going, hey, I invested some of my most valuable asset, my time, into this, and I feel good about it. Mm-hmm. And what I think is really an interesting perspective, and I'd love your thought on this, about podcasting in general. Okay. Because I've been in circles over the years where almost every single person in there had a podcast, and all of us were like kind of sick of doing the same old talking head, interviewing the same people. You know, there was that season where it was like every big influencer interviewed every big influencer on everybody's big influencer show, and we were all listening to the same stories over and over. But I think that there's some value in understanding that as a sales professional, as a small business owner, an entrepreneur, you have personal hobbies and interests that are unique to you versus all of the other people in your space. And I remember having a mentor early on that was like, yeah, dude, I got a show about WWF wrestling. We're like number 2 in the world. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, man, I've always loved WWF wrestling. And he's like, I get a shitload of clients from it. He was actually in the podcast space, as a matter of fact. He had, a podcasting agency.
Oh my gosh.
And so I've always told salespeople the same thing. It's like, lean in on the things that make you happy, the things that you're excited about. Like, if you're into gardening, I had a guy on earlier that was a guest that he was really into gardening. It's like, start a gardening podcast and then mention that you happen to be in the financial industry space or the financial service. Like, find people that love gardening. They need financial services too. And maybe if they can afford expensive plants, then they're going to like your show and they're going to want to hire. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Do people have to build a show around their industry, or can they get really weird and wild with it?
It all goes back to having a clear strategy with it, right? So I would only, like, let's go with your example about gardening and like finance. So sure, you're a financial advisor and you love to garden. I think it'd be so easy to have a gardening show and talk about the growth of money and how that's similar to whatever you're growing, and compounding interest is like the compounding work that you put into your garden year after year. Like, you can pull things, right?
Come on.
And so that's where that kind of seemingly off topic content can still pull people into your business. Like you said, the wrestling show, but oh, by the way, I'm a podcast producer too. That's an easy transition, because here you are podcasting, having a great time. Oh, hey, by the way, if you like this show, I can produce your show too about whatever you're interested in. It's an easy pull. So if, however, you're not comfortable about talking about your hobbies, or you can't more easily draw those lines, like we were talking about with the gardening and financials piece, that's where you just want to get like really intentional about, okay, but what could my ideal client be really interested in that would attract them to my business? So maybe you don't just talk about numbers all day as a financial advisor, but you're talking about life events and what questions people might be facing as their parents are aging or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of us that are going through this like sandwich feeling transition where we have aging parents and young kids. There's a lot that you could unpack there that people, again, would just latch on to. And, later they find out that you can help them with their investment. And, obviously if your investments are growing, then your life's probably a little bit easier. So I would encourage folks to identify that customer journey like we talked about earlier, and then really nail down, like, what is the strategy? Like, what would I say that connects this topic to what I want them to purchase or sign up for or do? And then that's how you really and just, as I was like spitballing off the top of my head of these different things, I mean, that's because this is what I do all day, is I'm saying to a potential client, like, okay, tell me about your goals, tell me about your business, all this, like, give me your whole spiel of like who you are, and then let's unpack it and separate things and stretch it out and go, okay, you could talk about these 10 things. Like, does that sound fun to you? And we're structuring their podcast intentionally so that it reaches their goals, but so they also have a good time doing it.
Well, because I think this leads me to my next question here. Because let's say, I've got all kinds of things I can talk about. I've got this great idea. Like, I know how it's going to flow. I just don't have the time. Like, I don't have the time to do a podcast. What do you say to that?
I say you don't have time not to have a podcast.
I'm listening, Virginia. Tell me more.
So A podcast, once you post those episodes, it lives forever until you literally go in and delete that content. It is not like social media posts where it's here for maybe 2 seconds if we're lucky. Maybe today it gets shown to however many people, and then you have a hard time finding it again. Probably after a certain period of time, you're not going to get any more clicks, likes, whatever. A podcast is very different. Over years, it can still be generating listens and downloads after you probably forgot what you even talked about. But if it was intentional, evergreen content that related to your business, and there's a clear call to action in there, and there's all of these intentional strategic pieces that we put together, it's generating business for you 3 years down the road. That's the type of marketing that we want and wish for as business owners. But since it doesn't feel the same as, ooh, my post from this morning got 100 likes, it doesn't give you that same endorphin, like quick hit feel. We think that it takes too much time. Well, how much time did you spend creating the graphic for that post? If you spent an hour doing that, well, you could have recorded like who knows how many episodes, depending on how short your show is, right? So we need long form, long living content to support our business that works for us while we sleep, right? That's like the phrase that's out there. It's like, find what works while you sleep. Well, ads are one thing, okay, but you are paying and paying and paying. And if you stop paying, they're coming down. Again, you're not going to get any more clicks. But podcasting and or video is something that lives for you and works for you forever. So I say you can't afford not to do it.
I absolutely love that advice, and I'm going to tack on one piece that my mother-in-law hit me with several years ago. So I had been recording podcasts for probably 2.5, maybe 3 years. I used to do a show that was 5 days a week. They were short, like 5-minute episodes, so it wasn't like a lot of content, but I mean 5 episodes a week. It takes a lot of time. And I'd reached a point where I'd been doing it for 3 years, and I was like, I have said everything I have to say. Like, I feel like I'm repeating myself. And my mother-in-law, God bless her, she's an amazing woman, she said to me, she's like, yeah, but how great that if something ever happened to you, your son has hundreds and hundreds of episodes of your wisdom that he can go and listen to.
Yes.
And I looked at her and I went, well, now I can't ever stop.
She got you.
Because and that was the same advice my mentor gave me when I started the podcast to begin with. He's like, listen, if you're going to start, just don't stop. Because most people only make it to 7 episodes when they start a show. I'm pretty sure that's still the statistic, right? It's like 7 episodes.
Yep.
And I promise you that even now, a year and a half into this show, which is 7 years into my podcasting journey, there are still people who I am directly related to or connected to and have walked down the street with and had dinner with who don't know I have a podcast.
Yeah.
Who have never listened to the show.
Yeah.
So don't trip out about worrying how many people are listening. Virginia, you made a great point earlier. Make the content that is for that one person that needs to hear it. Mm-hmm. And so before we get out of here, I want to ask you, what advice would you give all of our listeners who are considering now the value of starting a podcast for themselves?
Start with sustainability in mind for yourself, your energy, your schedule, your budget, and just do it. I have people that start shows all the time that we just do a once a month show, which, as you would know, that is a very slow grind. Okay. You're not going to build to 1 million listeners very fast that way. But guess what? They're starting. They're getting practice behind the mic. There's enough time in between every single one of those episodes that we can even have a coaching session if I see something that's off. You started. You did the thing, right? But like you said, commit to it. Don't quit. A once a month show. I mean, it's going to be a year before you hit 12 episodes. So you better be in for the long haul. But what that does is give you the option to increase your frequency, to say, you know what, that solo episode was really, really tough. I don't want to do that anymore for a while. Or I'm getting these interviews that I don't really like, and I need to re-strategize like who and why I'm inviting people on my show. Like, there's a lot of adjustment that can happen in there, and that initial learning curve is tough, but just start.
Virginia, you absolutely crushed it today, and I bet we could probably nerd out for several more hours about this topic, just knowing how passionate you are around it. So how do we find you, follow you, check out more of your content, see what you have going on around this?
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I'm on LinkedIn. That's like the primary place where I hang out. That's where a lot of my financial professionals hang out. Business owners, just look up my name, Virginia Elder. And then if you want to find my website, there's a bunch of free downloads that'll help you get started on your podcast on the right foot. And that's at podcastabundance.com/resources.
I will make sure the team gets those links in the show notes for myself selfishly, because I'm always trying to see what we can do to make this show better. But I really think we had some gems in today's episode. And so if you enjoyed it, you got some value out of it, you spent a little time and you feel like it was worth it, share this episode on social media. Go post it over on LinkedIn, tag me, tag Virginia, let the world know. Maybe you know somebody who wants to start a podcast, or maybe you know somebody who started a podcast and it kind of sucks. It's okay. Send them this episode. Say, hey, I was listening to this. It made me think of you. I think you'll get a lot of value out of it. Let them know you care. And then if you have your own sales story, this is the kind of stuff that really gets me excited, because everybody's journey is unique, but there's so much value that we can extract from these stories. Head over to callthedamnleads.com/podcast. Send us your details. We'll get you booked on. And then go grab a hat, maybe a keychain, a wristband, some swag, represent the movement, because you know what to do from here. Go pick up the phone. Call the damn leads. We'll see you next time.
When the doubt gets loud, but answer that call. Vision ain't real till you grind that speed, so breathing deep. Then call the damn leads. Call the damn leads.